For us today, we're gonna make some homemade almond pastry and some homemade hash brown patties and sausage and scrambled eggs. So let's start by making the base for our almond pastry. So this is gonna be our almond base. And we're gonna use one package. This is an 8-ounce package of almond paste. And you wanna use the package of the almond paste that's not goopy. So this is gonna be like marzipan in here, which is gonna be a firm but sweetened almond paste. There we go. If you use the more gooey almond pastry, then your filling will be too gooey. There we go. So we'll get it out. It's literally like a block of almond paste. And what I'm gonna do in my food processor, and I don't use my food processor often because it's a pain to clean, but this is one thing that I definitely use it for because this stuff is pretty hard to break up. But we're gonna crumble this in here. So this is a 1/2 pound of the almond paste. Crumble it up, that way it does an easier job of cutting through with the blades. There we go. So I've got it all just about. And then we are going to add in 1 cup of sugar. And you're going to use granulated sugar for this. So I'm just going to kind of sprinkle it all the way around. And then we're going to add in, I'll just steal this from my tablespoon, a tablespoon of vanilla extract. And this is we're working on the almond base for our almond pastry, and then we'll make up some hash brown patties, some homemade hash brown patties, and some scrambled eggs and sausage. So we want 1 tablespoon of vanilla extract. And I like to kind of drizzle it all over. That way that sugar gets nice and wet. And then we're gonna add in 1 whole egg plus 1 yolk. So I'll add my whole egg in first. And then I'm gonna add in my yolk. And I'm gonna reserve some of this egg white just to go into our scrambled eggs so I'm not wasting any egg. So there's our yolk. I'll move this over here. And then we're gonna pulse this up until it's formed a nice thick paste. So we're gonna blend it. And then I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna push our base down with my spatula, because sometimes you'll get it where you'll still have some pretty big chunks in there, and you want a nice kind of smooth paste. That way it's really easy to spread. There we go. So I'm just gonna slide around. There we go. Then we're just gonna whip it up a little bit more. And just to make this nice smooth filling for our almond pastry. There we go. Now looking pretty good. So now we know we have this nice kind of even paste in here that will be able to spread onto our pastry. Now we're gonna roll out our pastry crust. So earlier this morning, I made some butter, like a slightly sweetened butter crust for our almond pastry. So for when I'm doing a sweet crust, I'll add about 2 tablespoons of sugar in. If I'm doing a savory, I just omit that. So these 2 crusts were made with 2 sticks of butter, 5 cups of flour, 2 tablespoons of sugar, 2 teaspoons of salt, and about 1.5 cups of ice cold water. And I literally put ice in the water. And then you mix it together, it creates, like, you cut the butter into the flour, and then you add the water, and once that's all kind of cut. And it's going to make the most delicious buttery crust for it. And you put it in, you wrap it up in like saran wrap or press and seal, and you pop it in the freezer until it is nice and firm. And it's gonna be a little bit shaggy when you are storing it, but as that flour hydrates with that water, it forms together. And this is gonna give you just such a delicious pie crust, and all made with butter. So right now, I'm going to roll this out into about a rectangle. I do it between two parchment pieces of paper because it's much easier to flatten it and you don't have to worry about it getting stuck to your rolling pin. And then this is gonna be the bottom one. And these parchment papers are just about the perfect thing because think of this as being one big giant Pop-Tart that's going on my baking sheet. Now, and so that's kind of how I make it, is just like a big Pop-Tart where we have the pie crust on the bottom. We'll put the almond filling in, and then we'll do the pie crust on the top, and then we'll pinch those edges together, poke some holes, sprinkle a little bit of sugar, and bake it on up. But this again, and this will also make it really easy for us to transfer it to our baking sheet. Because I do not cook my pie crust on parchment paper because I find that it doesn't crisp up as nicely. Here we go. So I've kind of got my edging all the way out. So now I'm just gonna try to take my marble roller. And I will say, a marble roller is great for doing like pie work because it has so much heft behind it that you can really smush down a firmer pie dough. So here we go. So this is just gonna help even it out. So I'm just sliding it all the way along. That way we don't have a thicker on the outside and thinner on our edges. So we've got our first base done. I'm gonna take my baking sheet here. This is a non-stick baking sheet, which is really nice because then when it's time to take it off and cut it, it works really well. And I'm just gonna spray it down, again, just to help it slide off. Here's always the fun part. So I peel off my parchment paper, and then I'm just going to flip it over onto here. And do you see how this parchment paper, since it fits perfectly, it gives me a really good shape to make it easy to roll it out into. And then we have the bottom base of our pie crust. And then we're gonna fill it up with our almond pastry. And again, this is made with 8 ounces of the almond paste, and not the almond pie filling, but the almond paste. And I think it's Solo is the brand that I use. It makes the best one. 1 cup of sugar, 1 egg plus 1 yolk, a tablespoon of vanilla extract, and then you just puree it until it's nice and a nice kind of sweetened paste forms. Just getting all of this out because I don't want any of it to go to waste. There we go. One last. And then I'm going to spread this out. Now just be careful when you spread it. Just go from the inside out because sometimes it's, it's very thick. It can pick up that pie crust towards the end. But we're just gonna make a nice thin layer all over. And I'm gonna try to spread it out as far as I can. But you see how if you get too close to the edge, it's gonna pull up. So there we go. And it's gonna have that just delicious almond filling that you get in like a lot of pastries. That sweet almond filling, it's so good. This always reminds me, if you've ever heard of Dutch letters, this kind of always reminds me of Dutch letters. So we're gonna get it all the way out. Perfect. And then I'm just gonna use my finger to get all of this off my spatula, because again, the almond filling is what makes this delicious. Okay, so now that we have our base of our almond filling on here, I'm gonna slide it up here. I'm gonna wash my hands real quickly. We're gonna roll out our other pie crust, just like it, and then we're gonna flip that over the top, and then we'll seal it up just like a giant Pop-Tart. You know what I mean? It just looks like an almond pastry Pop-Tart. So that pie crust recipe I told you about earlier, you know, 5 cups of flour, 2 sticks of butter, 1.5 cups of cold water, 2 tablespoons of sugar, and 2 teaspoons of salt makes a double pie crust on there. So it's a good, gives you a good amount of dough, of this delicious butter flaky dough. And then you know, cut the butter and flour, put it in the fridge to chill. And it's nice because it can chill in the fridge for up to an hour or up to 3 days. So you really have, it's, you know, it's one that you can make pretty versatile. We're gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna press out. Let's see if I can get a little heft to the side. Now I'll say, this is, you want having a nice heavy rolling pin really does help with this. It kind of takes down a little bit of that work out of there, so you don't have to roll quite as much. I have more rolling pins than I actually need in this house, but I have my 2 favorites, this one, and then I have a fondant roller, which is just a small plastic tube, and that's great for just doing small batch rolling. But if I need to do hardcore rolling, this is the guy I use. Okay.
You got that one with the pattern in it.
Yes, the one in the pattern, which can make a cool little pattern on like sugar cookies and whatnot, or Swedish gingerbread cookies. I don't use, it's one of those ones where I was like, oh, this is so cute. And I use it like once a year. I know, I've heard that like libraries now are having like rentable kitchen supplies, so you can like you know, go and check out, I guess, your, you know, baking pan sheets, different cookie cutters, instead of having to buy all of them, which I think is actually a great idea. Because how many things do you need that you only use once or twice a year? But you don't want to get rid of them because you're definitely going to use them again, and then they just take up valuable real estate in your kitchen.
You have a question? Where did you get that rolling pin from?
This one, I got it a long time ago at this small kitchen store in Story City, Iowa. But I believe they sell it on Amazon. I'll have to see if I can find one that's just like it on Amazon. I don't know, it's just something I got because my mom had them growing up. And so, and she has, when I talk about us having a crazy amount of rolling pins, she had like 20 rolling pins, because every year when we'd make Swedish gingerbread cookies growing up, all of us siblings and would get one, so we needed a rolling pin each. So she had, you know, like 20 rolling pins.
You have a corgi around your face.
I love corgis, they're such funny dogs.
Pancake sent it.
Oh, well, thank you, Pancake. Okay, we're rolling this out. The only thing is you want to make sure this top crust is just as big as your bottom crust, because if you don't make it long enough when you flip it over, you'll leave the almond paste exposed, and that will bubble up and not cook right. So I'm making sure I'm really reaching the outer edges of this. Okay, this looks good. I'm just gonna even it out a little bit. And I will say, rolling, get your workout in.
Yo has a question. Can you guess what it is?
What's for dinner tonight?
Nope.
I actually have a kind of a good idea. My parents are finally back from all their travels. So I'm gonna do a lime roasted chicken, like a lime and pepper, a limey herb roasted chicken, and like a potato au gratin. We're gonna probably do a 2-part, a prep part, and then the finish up part. So that's kind of what I know I'm making, plus sides of some sort.
Oh, now we got a corgi that's looking at a sakura plant. That's from Beige.
Well, thank you. Okay, we're gonna peel this off like we have all the way around, and then I'm gonna grab a fork. We're gonna need this fork for 2 things. First, I'm gonna go around, and I always just pinch these 2 crusts together with my hands first. because I want to make sure I'm creating that seal to make sure that almond pastry all stays in there and doesn't bubble out.
You have a question? Do you go live every day?
We try to go live every day now. Sometimes we're on vacation or we have sports or things that just get in the way, but we try to go live every single day because I just kind of videotape what I'm making for my family. Okay, now that we have our pastry kind of there, this is where we make it beautiful. So we're gonna go with our fork and we're gonna crumple those little edges all the way around. This also helps seal them, makes them a little bit crispy, which is delicious. Makes it a little bit more pretty. It's just like what you do on a pie crust. Here we go. And then we're gonna go, after we've got this, we're gonna poke a bunch of holes in the top and sprinkle a little bit of sugar over the top of it to just give it a little bit of extra sweetness because it's a very mildly sweet butter crust.
Got a comment that it looks like a giant Uncrustable.
You're right, it does. I always say it's like kind of, to me it's like, closest thing is like a Pop-Tart. And I've always thought, I'm like, you know, I've always keep seeing these things for homemade Pop-Tarts and I'm like, oh, these look like so easy to make. I should definitely make them sometime because my husband loves Pop-Tarts. Like, and I don't know why because they're really not that great, but homemade Pop-Tarts I think would be delicious. There we go. So lots of little things. This is gonna let that kind of steam escape out. It's gonna allow that crust to get nice and flaky. And now we're gonna take our sugar and we're gonna sprinkle it over the top, and then this is gonna go into our oven. I have my oven preheated to 350 degrees. And then we're just gonna sprinkle a nice coating over the top of this. Because this, you know, we use, in our pie crust, we use 2 tablespoons of sugar, but that's not gonna make it very sweet. This is gonna give you that little extra sweetness on the top, which can, I think, breaks up the full pie crust. So it actually is just delicious and flaky. And when I was making the pie crust, of course, I used my press and fold method to ensure that I have some really nice flaky layers. There we go. Try to break up some of those crumbs. I always just like it. I never actually know exactly how much is sprinkled over, but it's just enough to have where you see the sugar dusted on it, like a nice little, as if it was your first like snow of the year, that just light kind of flaking, barely covering the ground.
You got a question? Could you do an icing, and what type would you use?
If I were to do an icing on this, I would probably make an almond flavored icing on it, but the inside is such a strong almond flavor that you really don't need an icing on it. I kind of love that taste inside with the flavors of, you know, the pie crust. Just gives it, they just work together. Okay, so my oven is set for 350. I'm gonna set this on the top shelf and we're gonna let it bake for about 25 minutes. Now, I will say, some ovens, it only takes 21, but my oven has always taken 25 minutes. So, you know, just depending on what you have. I feel like gas ovens, I'm not sure which one, but I know one place, it was always like 21 minutes and it was ready perfectly. And it was so weird because I would always make the recipe and the recipe was, everything was in factors of 7, which I know is kind of a nerd thing, but that's what I always noticed about it. It was like 21 tablespoons of water. Okay, let's get down to making our potato base for our potato patties. Homemade, these, I just love these. So I've got 2 russet potatoes that I've washed. I'm gonna give them a quick peel over here because the less skin, the better. Especially on russets, because russet skin is more fibrous, it's more woodsy, versus a Yukon Gold, which you could totally use in here, but I'm gonna use my Yukon later tonight. But I'm not gonna do a complete, like, perfect peel on these. Let me get that purple spot off though. But just a kind of a simple peel. I'm fine with a little bit of skin in there, but I prefer less. There we go. Plus, you know, some potatoes, they can look beautiful on the inside or outside, and then all of a sudden you cut in and they've got all these like black spots or ridges because they were injured. Here we go. And now we're gonna grate them. So I'm just gonna hold it, and we're just gonna grate these across. And it's actually doesn't take too long to grate potatoes. You get a lot out of one potato. So here we go. Get that potato peels off. And nothing beats it. Like, yes, you could buy store-bought hash browns, but those are always kind of, you know, gritty to begin with. These homemade hash brown patties are so good. They're more of a labor of love, but they are so much better. And it's really simple. You're just gonna use your, you know, your seasonings, fresh potatoes, and that's about it. You can even throw cheese in them if you want to. So this is gonna be for our potato patties. We've got our almond pastry cooking in the oven, and then we'll work on our sausage and our eggs. Look at that. So see how much, like even that size, and I'm not even done with the potato, how much that you get out of it is just a lot. Okay, so just about done with this one. Now don't grate so close that you grate your finger off or whatnot. So just be a little bit careful. I go faster towards the beginning of it, and then at the end, I'm just a bit more careful because I just don't want to. I'm not gonna grate these last pieces.
Yeah. Question. Update on Teddy. How's he doing?
He had a rough night last night and a rough morning. It was really, I don't think he's been sleeping with me, and he did not sleep well at all, as in I did not sleep well at all. He was just in so much pain last night, and his ears were really hurting. But we finally got a couple rounds of medicine in him this morning, and he's perked up and he's doing better. I do find that nights and early mornings are just rougher for him. But I'm hoping after, I think they said like after a first week of the tonsillectomy, you've got the scabs fall, so you've got some pain from that. But I'm hoping that will be gone in a day or two. And then we'll have our sweet old teddy bear back. Okay, let's get these. Perfect. Now don't always forget with potatoes, I will tell you, look, you're already starting to turn purple fast because of their oxidizing. That does not mean your potato is bad in the least. It just means that it's hit the air, and that natural sugars in the potato start to turn it brown. But we don't want to dip these. A lot of times the way you prevent your potatoes from turning brown is you put them in water, but we don't want to water sog our potatoes because we're going to be frying them up. So what I'm going to do is, once I'm done grating this, we're actually going to get a paper towel and soak out as much of this extra liquid as possible. That way we get the crispiest, potato patties. Getting down to the last little bit. There we go. And then that little bit. So you see how 2 potatoes make a huge amount of hash browns. So there's not as much as you think. So just like zucchini yesterday where we had to squeeze out the liquid, we're going to squeeze out any of this extra liquid with a paper towel. That way they'll fry up a bit more crispy. Put that to the side. Now I've got my bowl.
You've gotten lots of well wishes for Teddy.
Oh, thank you guys. I know, I just can't wait for him to be back to his normal self. I just feel bad for the little guy. Okay. Let me wash my hands. And then we can start adding in some of our things, and then we'll add in some parsley and green onions as well. So I've got some onion powder. This is gonna give such a delicious and savory flavor to our potatoes. I'm gonna add in about a tablespoon of onion powder. So I'm gonna sprinkle it all the way around because it's gonna give that really nice savory flavor to it. Then I've got about a teaspoon of parsley left. So we're gonna throw in some dried parsley. I have a little bit of fresh parsley that we'll also be putting in there.
Someone's watching you from Nassau, Bahamas.
Oh, wow. It's pretty cool.
We've been there.
I know, we have been there. That was on our honeymoon cruise. Okay, we're gonna add in, this is Mrs. Dash's table blend. We're gonna add in about a teaspoon of this. Again, it will give it a little bit of extra spice because I like a nice savory potato. And then some good old garlic salt. We're gonna add in about a teaspoon of garlic salt. We'll shake it over, and this is gonna be the base pretty much for our hash browns patties. We have our almond pastry cooking up in the oven, and we'll be frying these up. We'll fry up some sausages, and we'll make some scrambled eggs. Before we mix everything up, I've got a little bit of green onion I wanna add in here. Add just a little of flavors. Chives would be perfect if you had them. I do not. So I'm just gonna use the very few of these really tips of my green onion. And then I'm gonna use a little bit of parsley here. I don't need quite all of that. And I'm gonna chop it up. And this will just add another layer of onion to the hash brown patties. And I'm gonna make sure I have them well minced up because I don't wanna have any really big pieces, any big leafy pieces in there. There we go. And now we're gonna add them in. Perfect. Let me slide all of this stuff on here because we're done with our cutting board. And that way I can free up some space. Before we mix this up, let's get some of our olive oil heating up for our patties. So I'm gonna do a nice layer of olive oil on here because I want them to crisp up nicely. We're gonna turn our heat. We're gonna start it at high and then we'll turn it down a little bit lower. Now the trick with frying up our potato patties is you can't just throw a bunch in there. You've gotta have enough for each one to have room to breathe. So we're gonna just probably do 3, maybe 4 at a time, but I don't wanna have so many in there that they're going to crowd each other and not get nice and crispy. Here we go. So we're gonna mix these up. You can tell those flavors just smell delicious. Now you can also add in an egg and a little bit of flour in here as well if you want them to kind of be a little bit more substantial instead of just crispy potato, but be more of a form. You can do that, and sometimes I do that, but today we're just gonna keep them crispy potato patties. Here we go.
You have a question? Can you go over what's in the hash browns?
Yes, so we used 2 large russet potatoes. Then we added in about a tablespoon of onion powder, a teaspoon of Mrs. Dash's table blend, about a teaspoon of dried parsley, a teaspoon of garlic salt, and then we used some fresh green onions and fresh parsley as well. So pretty much, it's super simple, super easy. And now we'll be ready to kind of form our patties and pop them in there. Let me get out I'm gonna grab a baking sheet here for when they're all done. We're gonna take them out and we're gonna put them on, just like with bacon, on paper towels to suck up that extra grease to keep them nice and crispy. Here we go. Let me check my oil, see if it's nice and hot yet. You never want to put your oil in or fry them when it's not sizzling yet. So you see I put those drops in, no sizzle yet. So we're not going to do that. But I will grab Actually, I'll take this cutting board and we'll shape our patties out. That way we can flip them in there. I'm just gonna throw my peels, everything off. And we'll kind of shape up a couple patties here. So when I do it, I'm just gonna grab it and kind of mush it together just like that. Now they're gonna be delicate until you fry them. Sounds like my oil's getting nice and hot now. So we'll be just about ready to pop these in there. And again, you don't wanna overcrowd your things, and you don't wanna make your potato patties too thick because you want them to be nice and crispy. Let me wash my hands. And I'm gonna get a spatula and we can put our first sets in. To smush them down one more time because I want them to be as flat as possible. Let's see. There we go. So I actually think because they're kind of big, I'm just gonna do 3 at a time so that my oil stays hot and they'll get nice and crispy here. And then I'm gonna turn, I have my oil heated up on 8 out of a 10 to make it high, but I'm gonna bring it down to a 6 because I don't want them to burn. I want them to get nice and golden brown and crispy. So that's kind of the view. You want to cook it and then you flip it. You'll know when you're ready to flip is when your whole outer ring starts to get brown and crispy. So don't flip it prematurely and don't try to flip it early because then it will fall apart. Let's get some sausages cooking. We're gonna cook our sausages up first so that we have a nice kind of sausagey flavored butter left over to scramble our eggs.
Probably gonna butcher this, but are those latkes? Or?
It's kind of like a latke, yes, a latke, which is that, you know, like the Jewish potato dish that they serve during Hanukkah because it's fried in oil and that's like celebrates the thing. It's very similar to one. I don't know if they would consider it fully. I'm sure there's some variations to it, but yeah, you could pretty much call it like a potato pancake or a latke or along those lines. The school that I used to work at, we used to do holidays around the world every year for about like 200 people or so. And one of our families, like she came in and they were Jewish and she decided that like people brought in dishes to share. And she was gonna fry latkes on demand for everything. And they were such a hit because everybody's like, ooh, fried potatoes, these are the most delicious things ever. She was like frying potatoes forever. I was like crazy. I'm like, that was impressive. We're starting to get a little bit of our nice kind of, you can see a little bit of those edges are starting to get nice and crispy around the ends. I'm gonna wait until I kind of see that whole ring form around. I'm gonna rotate my pan because I do find that this pan cooks hotter up here than on the bottom part. But once we get that nice kind of crisp over it, then we'll be ready for it. We'll put our sausages in and then we're gonna start mixing up our scrambled eggs. And I'm keeping my eggs basic scrambled today because Teddy can eat scrambled eggs. That's one of the soft foods. And it's so funny because when you think about getting your tonsils out, everybody thinks, oh, all the ice cream you can have, the jello, the pudding. Well, Teddy does not like any of those foods really. He does not like ice cream because he doesn't like that it's cold. When he is always like, can you heat it up? And I'm like, you can't really heat up ice cream, buddy. But he's been loving soups and he's been loving savory foods. So I've been trying to make things, and muffins. Muffins has been the only thing that he has really eaten. Okay, these are looking good. So you see, I want to show you guys, see how we've kind of got this golden brown ring all the way around? That means we are ready to flip. And look, beautiful, perfect, crispy, our potato pancake edge. There we go. Beautiful. And these will have lots of great flavors in them because we use that onion powder and that table blend and the green onions and the parsley. So they're ones that you can eat just on their own. They're so delicious. You know, that was one of those things that I always loved as a kid, and I think it was because, you know, getting fast food or going out to eat was not as popular or common as it is now. Like, I feel like it was a rare occurrence in the 90s. But every year on the first day of school, we'd get up early and my parents would take us to McDonald's breakfast because that was rare and that was super special for us. So, and I always remember they always let us get an extra hash brown patty. And, you know, those simple things. It's something so simple, but was so delicious. And, you know, you remember it. And it was like, yeah, it was McDonald's breakfast, but it was special. I feel nowadays everybody goes out to eat or fast food all the time. My kids always kind of say they talk about how we never go out to eat. And I'm like, we go out to eat like 2 or 3 times a month, or we pick up something, you know, 2 or 3 times a month. I feel like we do it plenty. And they're like, well, my friends, they like get fast food or go out to eat like 4 or 5 times a week. And I'm just like, that's insane.
You have a question? Do you love your Hexplat pan?
Oh, absolutely love my HexPad plans. I got these about 2 years ago, right after we did our kitchen renovation, and I was like, I wanted a new, you know, I was like, dude, I said, I'll treat myself. And I watched all those commercials, and I'm like, well, if Gordon Ramsay likes it, they must be good. And love them. I have yet to scratch them. They clean up really easy, and I think that's the biggest bonus thing is they're not hard to scrub up or clean. They cook very evenly. So yes, I will say they are worth the money. And I've used several other pans before, like Teflons and Cuisinarts nonstick. These are by far my favorite. I actually have them in my Amazon storefront, at least on my page, because I like them that much. Okay, these first round is looking good. So I'm gonna put them on here. If they wanna fall up. And again, we're gonna transfer them onto our what is that, paper towel, so that they will soak up that extra grease and remain nice and crispy. Okay, we're gonna get this next batch out. And again, we're gonna kind of smush them nice and flat. There we go. Slide it on. And then once you put it in there, you really don't want to try to flip them, you know, just, you know, once they're, you know, like the first side and the second side, because the more you play with them, the more they'll fall apart, because we don't have a binder. Now, sometimes I do put egg and flour in it to create a you know, more of a substantial middle to it. But for these, I kept them simple. Squeeze out any extra liquid. I said potatoes are pretty, even though we squeezed out some, there's still a little bit left in there. And keep them nice and thin. Okay. Our sausages are looking good.
Yeah, I was ready to request. Can you go over what's in the potato patties one more time?
Yes. So the potato patties are just 2 big russet potatoes. Then we added about a tablespoon of onion powder, a teaspoon of garlic salt, a teaspoon of Mrs. Dash's table blend, and a teaspoon of parsley. And then we added in some fresh green onions and some fresh parsley. So all those flavors come together. I've got my eggs for my sausage off. And now what I always like to do before, I'm going to keep that kind of sausage flavored bits of grease, but I'm going to remove some of my like darker pieces so that my scrambled eggs don't look, you know, they're pretty good. So sometimes you get a little dark pieces there. We're just going to remove some of those, just like if I do with my bacon. So you don't have those like crispy bits that stayed on. And then let me grab a little bit of butter. And then I have my eggs, and then we're gonna put that extra egg white in there that we used in our almond pastry. So this will be a lighter a little bit more fluffy scrambled eggs because of that extra egg white. Okay, I'm gonna give it a quick scramble. I haven't turned on my pan, the heat on it yet because it's still nice and hot. So I'm gonna let it cook a little bit in there and then we'll turn it on. I'm gonna just do a quick scramble and let it saute and we'll turn it on. Looks like we've got some that are ready to flip. Beautiful, nice, crispy. I'm gonna let this thick guy cook a little bit more. I'm gonna actually do a little rotate because that outer edge didn't get as crispy as I wanted for it. Okay, but you see how hot my pan was and it's still cooking up those eggs. You don't wanna put your pan too hot where they completely like burn the eggs when you put them down. You want a nice hot pan when you do it. So I put it in, and then once I've got this good scramble on, I'm gonna turn my eggs on low. Now the trick to getting your eggs not to stick on your pan, and now this is a non-stick, so it's not gonna really stick on it, but you warm up your pan, but then you cook them low and slow. Because it's that high heat that's gonna cause that water, the natural liquid, to evaporate out and stick on your pan. Now, I cooked them in that little bit of that sausagey like bits, which will give them a great flavor, not as good as bacon gives, but we're out of bacon today. Here we go. Perfect. Look how beautiful that brown, golden, crispy edges on them. Gorgeous. It'll be nice, and I just love it because the inside is a bit more soft and tender because it's a little bit thicker, but those outsides are all that crispy, eggy flavor that you have. Now, my kids are a little bit, boring when it comes to scrambled eggs. They only like salt in it, but you could add so many things to make your eggs delicious. They don't even like garlic salt, which hurts my heart a little bit. They just like plain salt. So I'm just gonna get a little bit of plain salt in here. But you could add in fresh herbs like chives, parsley, cheeses galore, garlic, salt, onion powder. These would all make really great flavored eggs. But again, my kids are boring. I'm hoping one day they'll develop a palate that's closer to mine and farther away from my husband. Just gotta tease him a little bit. Okay, so you see how we added in that one extra egg white, and look at how my eggs look so blonde because of that. So they'll be a little, they won't be as beautiful yellow as they should be, but they'll still be delicious. But no need to waste that extra, if you're using it. Here we go. So, but I have a couple tricks for making scrambled eggs like basic for different ways. I'm gonna actually turn these off because they are just about done. And I always turn them off a little bit before they're done and remove them from the heat because they will steam off that extra liquid and you don't wanna get them so dry that they break apart. But if you like a richer scrambled egg, add in an extra yolk and that's gonna give you a nice, really rich one. If you like a fluffier one, add in about a tablespoon of milk and whisk that in. And then you'll have this nice fluffy one. And then if you like it more like a French scrambled eggs, you cook them until they're snotty, which is really runny, and then you eat them. My kids do not like that. We'll get our almond pastry out in 1 second, but I'm gonna put my last set of potato pancakes in.
You have a question? Do you only grocery shop once a month?
Oh, no. I grocery shop too often. It's about once a week I try, but there's often times where I'm going multiple times. I do have a couple of videos of my grocery shopping hauls because I shop from multiple different stores. And those are on the link on our page. So.
And those only cover 1 week.
And those only cover 1 week. So, yes, like we are a family of 7, but I also cook for my parents. I cook all of their meals, and then we have my nieces and nephew over here several days a week. So we are cooking between 11 and 13 people daily.
That's 9 to 11.
9 to 11, yes. Well, yes. I don't know why I was... Math is off. Okay. I'm gonna turn that down. We're gonna go get, let me wash my hands, and we're gonna go get our almond pastry out of the oven. There we go. My oven doesn't let me forget. So my previous ovens that I had, I swear you could never hear the beeper when it was going. So I always had to set my microwave timer. This oven set, it will continuously beep forever until you come and turn it off. So here is our gorgeous, beautiful almond pastry. You can see it's kind of puffed up, got this lovely bubble on it. Beautiful. Now, almond pastry, because we just use this crust base is just butter, flour, a little bit of sugar. It has a nice blonde color, but it is delicious. There we go. We gotta let it cool. You can't actually cut into it right away. Think of it like brownies, but you can see this crust is nice and hard on there. Because if you cut into it right away, what happens is that almond pastry needs to set and firm up. So we'll be able to cut in just a second a little bit edge off of that. But let's get these last potatoes. They're almost done. Here, both. These are gonna be so good. I'm gonna turn this down, but let me get a small spatula here because we can cut off, yes.
You have a question, can you go over the almond filling?
Yes, so for the almond filling, you're going to use 8 ounces of almond paste. I use the Solo brand, it comes in a little teeny box. I already threw the box away, so otherwise I would show you. But it's called almond paste, so don't get the one that's pastry filling, you want the paste. It's gonna be a hard little block. A cup of sugar, 1 egg plus 1 yolk, and then a tablespoon of vanilla extract. What you're gonna do with that is I put it in my food processor, so I had it over here, and I processed it until it was nice and smooth. And that was the base of it. Then for this one, I used a slightly sweetened butter crust, which was 2 sticks of butter with 2 tablespoons of sugar, 2 teaspoons of salt, 5 cups of flour, and 1.5 cups of ice cold water, as in water with ice cubes in it to make it really cold. And what you do is you cut your butter into that flour, sugar, and salt mixture, and then you add in the ice cold water. You press, it's gonna be a shag, you press it into forms, you put it in the fridge until you're ready to use it. Okay, let's see. I feel, yeah, this is good. I can probably take an edge piece out, no problem, because it's nice and firm down there. Well, let's get ready to serve up.
You have a question? Is this like pie crust?
Yes, so it is like a flaky butter pie crust with an almond filling on the inside. And it is so, so delicious. Actually, I'm gonna grab a slightly different spatula to cut this up because I want a firm edge for it. Now, if you have a non-stick coated baking pan, don't ever use a metal spatula in it. You will scratch it up. Let me check my potatoes. I'm gonna just turn them off and let them fry right here. Okay, so I'm gonna cut this down in here, and you can see it's just cutting beautifully. And then you can slide it up. I gotta cut it a little. There we go. So here is that filling inside, that nice, beautiful almond paste filling, and that's flaky layers. So we'll have that for our kind of delicious, things. We're gonna have our nice seasoned potato pancakes here with those onions, that garlic salt. We've got our scrambled eggs, and then of course we'll have some sausages as well, and easy peasy lemon squeezy delicious brunch today. Well guys, thank you so much for joining us here today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking every single day, show you what we're making, and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Again, we do upload all of our videos to the link on our page, so if you ever want to recreate any of these recipes at home, all you have to do is go to that link, search for what we're cooking, and watch along with us again. We also have a link to our Amazon storefront that has all of our different cooking gadgets, pans, things. I got my hex clad in there. Everything that we use in the kitchen we have in there for you to check out if you want to as well. But again, guys, thank you so much for joining us here today. Don't forget to